Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel.
Okay, so picture this. It's 1958. The world is changing like crazy, and the Catholic Church, well, it kind of feels stuck. The guys in charge, the cardinals, they're thinking, we just need a break, someone to keep the seat warm, a safe choice. But what they got was a revolution. This is the story of a man everyone underestimated who ended up changing everything. So, what was the plan? It was pretty simple, actually. Elect an older guy, a transitional pope, someone who wouldn't, rock the boat, someone who'd sign a few papers, keep things quiet, and just let the church catch its breath. They needed a caretaker, a placeholder, and they were pretty sure they'd found their man. And that man was Angelo Roncalli. He becomes Pope John XXIII, and you can almost hear the collective sigh of relief from the cardinals. Phew, safe choice. Except, they had just made one of the biggest miscalculations in history. Because this temporary old man, he was about to light a fire that would spark the biggest changes the church had seen in 4 centuries. Now, to really get why what he did was so shocking, you've got to understand the man himself. His entire life story was just so different from the world he was now supposed to lead. He was a peasant in a palace, and that changes everything. Think about it. For hundreds of years, popes were usually aristocrats, scholars, top-tier diplomats. They grew up surrounded by silk and marble. But Angelo Roncalli, he was a farmer's son, one of 13 kids. He didn't grow up in silk, he literally grew up in the soil. And that gave him a point of view the Vatican hadn't seen in a long, long time. And his experience wasn't just in the farm fields. I mean, this guy lived through it all. In World War I, he was a stretcher bearer, carrying wounded men off the battlefield. In World War II, he was a diplomat who used his position to forge fake baptismal certificates, saving thousands of Jewish people from the Holocaust. He had seen the absolute worst of the modern world, up close and personal. He knew the world was hurting deeply. But even as he rose through the ranks, he never lost that down-to-earth farmer's son sense of humor. There's this legendary story where a reporter asks him, "Your Holiness, how many people work in the Vatican?" And without missing a beat, he just says, "About half of them." It's hilarious, right? But it also tells you everything about his no-nonsense view of the whole massive institution he was now in charge of. And he was anything but a stiff, distant figure locked away in the Vatican. In fact, he was famous for sneaking out at night. The guards apparently nicknamed him Johnny Walker because he'd just wander the streets of Rome visiting sick kids in hospitals. He was a people person, not a prisoner of the palace. And that connection, that's what was about to fuel his biggest move yet. So this deep connection to real people, to a hurting world, it led him to do the one thing absolutely nobody saw coming. We're just 3 months into his papacy, and this caretaker pope, he's about to drop a bombshell that will shake the Catholic world to its very foundations. Pretty much on day 1, he announces he's going to call a giant meeting, the Second Vatican Council. Now, to put that into perspective for you, it's like a new CEO taking over a 2,000-year-old company and saying, all right, everyone, we're rewriting the entire company handbook. His own team was terrified. They thought he was nuts. But he was determined. And his whole idea boiled down to this one incredible Italian word, aggiornamento. It literally means bringing up to date. He wasn't talking about changing the core beliefs of the faith, not at all. It was more like changing its clothes, updating how the church talks to and engages with the modern world. You see, his logic was actually really simple, but so powerful. He felt the church had been hiding behind these high, thick walls for way too long, just condemning everything outside. He famously said he wanted to throw open the windows of the church to let in some fresh air. And instead of yelling at the world for its problems, he wanted to use what he called the medicine of mercy. And the changes this council kicked off were huge. You could actually see and hear them. For centuries, the Mass was this mysterious thing in Latin, with the priest's back turned to everyone. After Vatican II, it was in your own language, English, Spanish, whatever, with the priest facing the people. It was a total shift, from being a fortress that kept the world out to a forum that invited the world in. But opening the church's windows wasn't just about changing things on the inside. It was about engaging with the whole world. And at one of the most terrifying moments in all of human history, this farmer's son from a tiny Italian village stepped up and helped save us all. Okay, let's go to October 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis. The US and the Soviet Union are eyeball to eyeball,
fingers on the big red buttons. The entire world is holding its breath, literally on the brink of nuclear war. And right at the peak of this insane tension, while the world leaders are just posturing, Pope John XXIII does something nobody expected. He gets on the radio and makes this global address, just begging for peace. But here's the thing, it wasn't just a prayer. It was a stroke of genius, diplomatically speaking. See, the Soviet leader, Khrushchev, was totally boxed in. He couldn't back down without looking weak, but he also didn't want to start World War III. The Pope's plea gave him the perfect out. It came from a neutral moral authority, so Khrushchev could say, "I'm not backing down to the Americans. I'm responding to the Pope's call for peace." It let him withdraw the missiles without losing face. It was brilliant. And just like that, the tension broke. The ships turned around, the missiles were withdrawn. The world could breathe again, and everyone knew he had played a crucial part. Time magazine even named him Man of the Year. Just think about that. The farm boy from a little village in Italy helped stop nuclear Armageddon.
So, after all that, what is the legacy of this guy who was only supposed to be a caretaker? Well, the cardinals were right about one thing. His reign was short, but the fire he passed on, that's still burning today.
Sadly, John never got to see his council finish its work. He passed away from stomach cancer in 1963, just 5 years after he was elected. So yeah, the Cardinals got what they wanted, a short reign. But the impact he had, it was anything but temporary. I mean, look at his legacy. The Mass is now celebrated in local languages all over the world. The Church started building bridges with other faiths, especially repairing the long and painful relationship with the Jewish people. And maybe most importantly, he shifted the whole vibe from an insular, defensive fortress to a global community that actually engages with the real world, all because of him. In the end, I think Pope John XXIII left us with this one profound idea. He once said, "Tradition isn't about guarding the ashes, it's about passing on the fire." He showed the world that tradition isn't some dusty old thing in a museum, it's a living, breathing flame that needs to be passed on. And really, the question he leaves for all of us is, what windows do we need to throw open in our own lives today?